Oh man, here we are once again, and what a blessing it is. What a blessing every day is when we got life above the ground. We're blessed to breathe, blessed to sleep, blessed to move and be as we are. Our hearts are beating. We woke up this morning. We got shelter over our heads, food on the table, clothes on our back, and ways to earn money. But one of the greatest pleasures in life is being able to sit down with like-minded brethren and have an open-minded discussion and conversation, and even be in a space to where we can all be free and move as we usually are and be our true authentic selves. And I treasure these brothers that you see before me right now, because every time we get together, we have awesome sessions. So we had the awesome idea, let's just go ahead and record a session. And if you do not know who we are, you will learn soon enough. But these are the Grateful Brothers. What we going to do is we're going to go through a little bit of an introduction, and I'm going to go ahead and kick off, gentlemen, if you won't mind, on a little bit of why I am grateful today. Let's kick it over right to my right-hand side, who's drinking a glass of water as we speak. Mr. Rod Brinson, how you doing, brother? How's it going?
Man, I'm well. And you mentioned introduction, so I'll just do a quick rundown. My name is Rod Brinson. I'm a brand strategist. I help people build their business and build their brand from the ground up or to take it to new heights. I've been doing it for about 15, 20 years. And met these guys, and we've been connected ever since, focusing on, what we're grateful for and helping others to kind of push that envelope forward. So today, I'm grateful for the same things you just mentioned, being alive, being able to breathe, like the things we take for granted. And I'll be short with this, but I saw somebody talking about something. I forgot if it was a movie or show, but matter of fact, it was the Jamie Foxx show. I just recently watched it. And he was talking about his recovery and how he went into some ward and saw some people who were like paraplegic, who could not move their limbs and their legs and stuff. And they never would be able to. And the nurse was just telling him to be grateful for having the ability to recover. I think about that from time to time myself. So I'm excited to be here, excited to get through the rest of the brothers. So that's who I am.
We're going to move it down to the wizard himself, Mr. Gregory G. Wiz Rutledge. How's it going, brother?
Man, I'm so grateful for this first episode of sharing a little bit of what has been a catalyst to us meeting, which is the Grateful Brotherhood. My name is Gregory Rutledge. I'm transitioning to G Wiz because it's an acronym for God's Will Ignite Zeal. I'm a design catalyst. I help people bridge gaps, connect dots, and break silos. Trying to do that for companies. That's where I'm moving to bring the clarity, the alignment, and the actionable steps that businesses need to do those things and solve real problems. I am grateful for clarity and communication. I was having a conversation with my wife before this, and it made me think of how powerful, like we already know there's power in words, but just how powerful communication is when it's done right. She asked a question, what is true communication in essence, right? And we sat and had a conversation in a whiteboard session, practicing communicating by actually listening to each other, not listening to respond, but listening to understand. And so that was really powerful, and it made me think. And then I saw right there how that created genuine, true content based on an actual problem that everyone has. So I thought that was a great lead up and to hear. And, I'm grateful to have brothers like you to communicate with that keep my head straight and remind me to keep that perspective, as Rod mentioned, of gratitude, because just that shift to why is this happening to me to what is this doing for me is powerful enough to keep us moving in the right direction.
And we diving in earlier than we think, man. Before we get going too fast, I want to kick it over to my man, John. How's it going down there in Florida, brother?
Blessed and highly favored as always. A pleasure to be here with you guys. So just a quick intro. My name is John Soba, also known as Life. And what I do is I do people. I help them unshackle and find what their purpose is in life by identifying who they are in their lives. I help them identify gratitude and acknowledge it as being that one thing that you need to do in order to move forward, and then go a bit deeper into why broken is beautiful. And I've been doing that for quite some years now, but now I'm doing it professionally with companies and high-end individuals.
It's wonderful to see how each of you's mission and purpose and what you're currently doing just pours in so effortlessly to the conglomerate that we've formed and the purpose of why we're here. And if you've listened to these brothers speak, you can tell at the core of everything they're speaking about, there's a deep concern and a want and a desire to help all those they come in contact with be the best version of themselves, to realize how to be grateful, to help other people discover themselves, and to be able to speak life in other people. These are gifts that we give to one another. And the reason why we have a forum like this is to do it amongst ourselves with the hope to grow. I myself and B-Tones, people have asked me before, even Rod asked a wonderful question on meeting me. He's like, what is Tone Masters about? And I had to sit and think with that, just being a little bit transparent on what it really was. Because I thought I had an idea, but I had not defined it. And what it really is because I am the first client of Tone Masters. I teach people how to elevate their tone and find it. And once they do, they become a tone master. In essence, everyone has knowledge or is knowledgeable or excited about something. And usually people don't speak too much about it because of such fears and fallacies they may believe about themselves. But once all that stuff is broken, like John said, once you become unshackled, then you can elevate your tone and become a tone master in any circle, any circumstance. So that's just a little bit about the four of us. I know there are probably going to be more questions and interest basically after this discussion, but like we always do, man, we kick back and we start every conversation off with gratitude. Gentlemen, as I said before you right now, something marvelous happened to me today in the fact that I saw how the Most High moved just to have a bunch of things go right in my life. Not only was I able to receive a bonus amount of funds, I'd say, in regards to the performance that I put in this past year with my job, I did not expect to receive today. But there was a phone call that I had received a little bit earlier to where it sent me into distress. The nature of the phone call is a little bit personal in nature, not only to myself, but the person I was speaking to on the other line. In addition to that, I am in a certification program that has been meeting every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, including today, going back to last week. And there's a copious amount of information. My job is invested a large amount of money that I, know, they're going to be expecting me to be able to deliver on that, which I'm learning. That coupled with, the daily stresses of what's going on, what I haven't accomplished yet, what still needs to be done, were clouding my mind to the point where I had forgotten to book a barber appointment. And like I told Rob right before this, man, I was looking like a wolf. I was like, ain't no way I'm about to get on camera with these. So when that happened, man, I called my barber, who I usually meet on Friday. He said he could squeeze me in. So as I'm heading up there, it's raining cats and dogs outside in this area today for some reason. So there's a lot of traffic, a lot of time to contemplate. If I was speeding or whatever, I'd have just been there, which I usually do, but not today. And as I was sitting in traffic, my mind began to wander again on the things that I could not control. So much so to the point where I blocked out that voice that said, hey, just calm down. Just let it go. And I swear to you, gentlemen, from the 20-minute ride it took me to get from my doorstep to the barbershop, I was thinking about everything else that I could not control and all the things that would usually be tricky. But in my mind, I was handling it. I wasn't looking at it in despair. I was like, okay, if I need to do this, that means I need to do this, this, and this. And so my mind was functioning as, ours often do, being men, take care of business. And as soon as I got into the barbershop, in the chair was a brother I have not seen for 5 years, who I used to do ministry with. And me and this brother was as thick as thieves. But he had family obligations and the circumstances surrounding his departure from ministry and me and the group that we were in, I'll let that remain ambiguous. It's not important at this point, but one may say that the waters were left a little bit, ruffled after he left. And of course, these are all things that are playing on in my mind. But when I saw that brother, all that stuff flew out the window. I couldn't even remember. So I gave him some dap and he sat down and we began to have a conversation for, I guess, the remainder of the last 15, 20 minutes. And then the Most High said, he was like, you see how things can change just like that? You and that brother were able to fellowship in the barbershop with this barber, who, might I add, by the way, is a good, solid Christian brother. You know what I'm saying? He knows a bunch of my friends. So me and him sit down and we have good conversations all the time. So he was a part of it. But after that conversation and having, man, we blessed each other. We blessed one another's families. We talked about the ventures that each other has going on. He's a very professional lyricist. He used to be in the secular industry. And then he went Christian, but he is very, very skilled in the art of lyricism. Rap, like he can just do it. He's one of them. And so we were talking about that, reminiscing on old times. And then when he left, subsequently, I forgot about everything I was thinking about in the car. Because after that happened and the conversation we had was so meaningful and in such a public area, it left me fulfilled and left him fulfilled. So there was no room for doubt, fear, worry, or anxiety. All that left was gratefulness. Yeah,
that's good.
I rolled home, dog. Crazy accidents all up and down the road. Them joints ain't touched my car. Gratitude. So as I rolled through that story, and I know I'm probably leaving a lot out for the time being, I believe that's sufficient, man. It is a wonderful thing when gratitude invades our minds and we allow it to, and then see what happens, man. So I'm gonna just throw that out there on the floor and see who wants to pick up the ball and run with it.
Yeah. I'm happy to pick up, man, because I mean, you said a lot there, but I think sometimes we forget where gratefulness actually comes from. It comes from something great happening to you or something good that you experience. But I challenge that to say that sometimes it doesn't even have to be some great miraculous experience in order for you to be grateful. Like we talked about some of the mundane things that we take for granted, like our breath and our heart beating without us even putting in any effort. But then there are also some things that are not so great that happen. And in the moment, we feel like they are tearing us apart and ruining our lives or whatever they may be. But then in hindsight, and not in every situation, but in most situations, we can find something to be grateful for that was an outcome of that initially thought to be bad situation. So when I think about that, when I think about the fact that good things, miraculous things you could be grateful for, mundane, everyday life things you could be grateful for, and bad things you could be grateful for, there's no excuse to not be grateful for life.
Come on, Rob.
You have something to be grateful for in general. So, just hearing your story and thinking about how we all are on a day-to-day. Like I had a headache leading into this call. I'm just laying in my bed like, God, I wish this headache would just go away. But such is the life of an entrepreneur, right? Sometimes you got to take calls when you don't feel well. You got to go meet people, etc. I still found a way to say, you know what? I'm going to muster through this, and I'm going to be grateful that I have the opportunity to get on a podcast with Tone and John and Greg and just, talk amongst brothers. So I could talk all day, so I'll pause there. But the point is, there's always something to be grateful for.
Always, man. Everything has two sides.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and pick up right there. There's something you said that just made me think of God kisses, right? That's those serendipitous, coincidental moments that are too good to not be God. And that's exactly what you described. And God kisses is just another way to say, I'm grateful and I see God in everything. And that's just what you said, Rod. Gratitude comes from something great happening that makes us feel full. But it also is a tool that we can use to turn whatever happens into something great and full, or great and fulfilling, great that fills us up. And it's choosing to see the good no matter what, right? Because God is good. He can only be good. And so if we're looking for him in everything, we'll see him in everything. But the caveat or the flip side of that coin is, if I'm looking for what's wrong, if I'm looking for what's messed up, if I'm looking for the bad, I will find more bad to see. And I've been in the last few months beating myself up and then proclaiming the circumstances in my life as they are without acknowledging the good or being grateful, because I have that ability too. I think I'm just a little more vocal about it than most people. Like, a lot of people don't know where to be vulnerable so that other people can see that they're actually human and have the same problems. And so we can look at people and see, oh man, they're always in a great place. What's wrong with me? I think I bridge that gap by saying, this is how I'm feeling. I know it's not quite right. I do see the good in it, but at the moment I don't feel that, right? Even saying I'm grateful in this moment or talking to someone, I feel myself spiraling. But in so doing, like I'll post it on Facebook, I'm feeling this way. I know this isn't right. I know what I should be feeling, but I can't be the only one. And I think that opens up this space for people to be like, man, you're not alone. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they stumble upon something like this, where we are purposely getting together and expressing, right, here was what happened in my day, but here's where it was different than any other time.
Mm-hmm.
Because in hindsight, right, it makes sense. You look back on that time, you knew where you were and what was happening, but it still ended up working out perfectly. Nobody touched your car, even though there were accidents. You made it there right on time, because any other time, too soon or too late, you would have missed that friend. You were supposed to like get that group back together, or so you thought earlier, but it happened right in the time it needed to. Because maybe you wouldn't be in the place that you are now in order for whatever to happen. And maybe you wouldn't have looked at him like, you know, there was no problems had it happened any sooner. And maybe you wouldn't be in such a good place if it happened any later. So it happened right when it was supposed to, right? I've been having some reflection, and I did this thing. So I'm grateful for awareness, because awareness is powerful. Because once you're aware, you can't be unaware.
Sounded like you said underwear. I was like, oh, unaware. Okay.
There you go.
You need to behave, Robert. You need to We're going to keep this PG. We're going to keep this PG, all right?
Both are true. I did this thing called the GROW model, which is a framework for when you're coaching clients, but you can use it on yourself if you don't have access to your coach at the moment. So I wrote down GROW is an acronym for goals, reality, options or opportunities, and way forward. And I listed out like what my goals are. That's where I want to be. I listed out my reality, where I actually am. I listed out some options or some opportunities to bridge that gap. And then I thought of a way forward. And when I did that, I saw everything clearly. The reason that I can't reach these goals is because my reality is here and they don't match. And so without seeing that clearly, I wasn't able to think through options or opportunities to change that clearly or come up with a way forward. But since I did that, it's become so clear that it's given me energy to move and actually do something about it rather than sit and complain, right? It's easier to be grateful when I have a list of things that I can look at physically. And so making a gratitude list does the same thing. It's something about writing and bringing it to your awareness so that you can see it for yourself. Because conversations are cool, but without writing the vision and making it plain, how can you bring it to be, right? So I went for a walk after that and really thought through it. And I was talking with Dalin. I don't know if y'all met her yet. She's a business consultant that does belief reprogramming. And she'll take a belief that is not true, a limiting belief. She'll ask you a bunch of questions as to why you feel this way to expose it so that you can see the roots. And then she'll ask questions clarifying to show you that this is just a supporting root of this limiting belief that none of these are true. And the truth can be scrutinized and still stand, but a lie cannot stand under scrutiny. And so when she asks these questions and dismantles these lies, all that's left is the truth and the affirmations. So she was asking me, why haven't you got to where you want to be yet? And I started listing them all out, forgetting that she's doing this on me. And then we didn't get to the part where she reprogrammed them, but because I've seen the process so many times, it started happening subconsciously. Then I had that conversation with my wife. Now I'm here with y'all. The clarity just keeps building. And so gratitude is the key that unlocks the door to so much more than we can ever ask or hope for.
Just to add a little bit of emphasis on some of the things that I'm hearing, when we talk about gratitude, we're unfortunately for many people, there's a grandeur behind gratitude. And when I say that, I say it's almost unreachable. It's as if you're talking about God and it's unreachable. But we know that through scripture and the word, we're able to feel him closer to us, right? So what I tend to do and teach is that let's change the word just a little bit. And Greg, you hit it right on the head, is awareness, right? Mm-hmm. So when we take each piece from what we've already said, awareness allows you to understand better what the circumstance may be. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's a catch though. You don't always understand what the whys behind things. And sometimes we try to add a why to every circumstance and everything in our lives. And the belief that I have is that we try to control the why is because we believe that we have control over our lives. Mm-hmm. And that's not true. We have certain controls, right? Where we've been given free will to be able to make a decision. However, our path, whether narrow or wide, it doesn't matter. Our path isn't always dictated by us. Sometimes it's circumstantial. Mm-hmm. And we try to understand it, but we can't understand it. We can't understand why we woke up today and our heart is still beating. We can't fully understand and grasp why I can still grasp air and still breathe and I'm here speaking, right? Mm-hmm. So when we talk about gratitude, sometimes it's so big that people see it so far and it's unreachable. When in reality, it's not. It's you were able to move your hand. Okay, you're aware of it. Great. Leave it alone. Move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. You follow?
Yeah.
We try to label everything in our lives because we want to manage our lives and know and be the one. Mm-hmm. I rather know that there's something greater. His shoulders are much bigger than mine, and I can place it in his hand and be grateful that I can do that. Mm. And yes, there are things that you need to control. Obviously, we're not saying that there's not. We're just saying, okay, how do we take tangible steps that help better our lives and the lives of those that we touch every day, that we're involved with every day, that we participate with every day? How do we do that? And then how do we reflect back and say, oh, you know what? I think I did okay today. You know what? That's good. Maybe I can do that tomorrow or do something better tomorrow. And if tomorrow comes and you don't feel okay, that's okay too. You're entitled to not feel okay. Acknowledge it. Be aware of what it is so that it doesn't consume you, and take another action. And little by little, you start to see progress in your life.
Man, I have to chime in on that. I feel you tingling, Greg. John, so number one, man, let's just keep it real. There are some people that are listening to this right now who are going through some stuff, and they can't even really fathom half of the things that are coming out of our mouths. Mm. The bottom line is it's impossible for a person who's under a cloud of dysfunction or depression to look at their life and find something to be grateful about, mm-hmm. right? They're probably like, man, listen, you don't know my story. You don't know my mm-hmm. pain. But guess what? Mm-hmm. I don't have to know your story or your pain to know that you can find something to be grateful for. So the trick is to have a little bit of clarity. I heard that word earlier. Right. Mm-hmm. If you're clouded with all of these things, like you said, Brad, you on the way, you got all this stuff on your mind, it's clouding mm-hmm. your ability to see straight. You can't even function really. Right. Mm-hmm. But what you need is a distraction away from these things that are causing you to think negatively. And when you get all distraction, sometimes it's God, sometimes it could be somebody else in your life. It could be just a thing you heard on the news or on the internet or whatever. If you get a distraction that can break you out of that dark cloud for just a moment, if you don't get nothing else from this podcast, remember this. Take that moment to think about where you were 5 years ago, 5 months ago, right? Some of the things that you made it through that you didn't think you were going to make it through. And then be grateful for that moment. Regardless of what the future holds, if you look at your track record, you have made it through some things. That is enough to be grateful for.
So, Rod, one of the things I want to be able to bring to this conversation based off of what you said. If you have that dark cloud, we've all had it. right? So for that person that's listening to us saying, you don't know my story, you don't understand, okay? Take a moment and look around your home and look at that one thing that you've been meaning to do that you haven't done. Forget about everything else. Let's say you have a pair of shoes out of place. Go pick up the pair of shoes, go put them in place. Mm-hmm. And then go wash that dish that you left in the sink. And then, and little by little, you start doing these things. So I 1000% agree. If you take some sort of action, whether you can identify the gratitude within your current circumstance or what you just said, which is super powerful, your 100% success rate of life. Because if you're listening to this, you have a 100 success rate. You've done it. You're here.
Yeah.
So don't just throw that aside or look away and say, you know what? You don't get it. No. We do. We've all been through it. Just take one step. That's all we're asking. If you do that one thing, listening to this podcast, that's that one step possibly for you. It's okay. You're going to be fine. Just push forward.
Man, and I was thinking with the conversation I just had with my wife, what is true communication? It's listening to understand rather than respond. If I would have jumped to interrupt, right, before Rod said what he had to say, I wouldn't have had the full thought I'm about to give y'all. So just for the person listening, right, all things happen in the right time. Like there are no accidents. Everything is happening exactly as it should for all people in all places at all times without exception. So something you said, two things you said, John, and one thing you said, Rod.
Why gotta be two things he said? Why can't you know what I'm saying? Dang,
come on now.
One for me.
Listen, you need some peanut butter for that jelly?
You know what? I'm grateful for that one thing. I'm grateful for the one thing.
Listen, accumulation of everything, man. Why can't we just get along?
So John over here reminded me I got dishes in the sink. That's all I'm
right.
Hey,
one dish at a time, Brad.
So I'm gonna wrap it up for you in a pretty little gift box with what God just gave me from listening to y'all. So God is in the business of results. We're in the business of action. Well, when I'm grateful, my gratitude speaks service. When I'm grateful, I'm moved to want to serve, which actually is a great bridge to that action that becomes the distraction. So that we're not focused on the problem, but we are serving, right? Whether you're doing the dishes, whether you're picking up that dirty laundry, right? You're taking an action. In taking that action, you are distracting yourself from your problems, especially if you're taking action to serve someone else, right? Out of gratitude, right? So I'll give you a great example. When I used to wait tables, I'd go in, bad mood, something's happening in my life. I don't want to take tables. I just want to go home until I get my first table. And then I'm on stage because I know my money depends on it, right? And so I got to show up and perform regardless of how I feel. And every time I'd walk up to that first table, it's like I'm grumpy. I feel it. And then I walk up to that table and I see people and I know they're hungry. And I know that what I have to offer them here is going to change how they were before to be better after. They're hangry now, but when they leave here, they're going to be happy and they want to come back and eat in my section because I created an experience for them. So I walk up and it's like, hi, my name's Gregory. It's Macaroni Grill. I'd write my name upside down on the table and they'd be like, wow, that was so cool. How long did it take you to do that? And then I just feel myself lifting up. And before you know it, I'm immersed in serving them and creating the best experience for them. I forget I had problems. Sometimes I don't even remember them after work. I just feel so energized by serving, right? And then that creates more gratitude because I'm like, man, I'm grateful I showed up. I'm grateful I did something outside of my comfort zone. I'm grateful that I served someone else. And then it just builds the momentum, right?
Yeah.
But on the days when I actually was able to weasel out of work and I didn't end up serving anyone, I stayed in that negative place.
I'm glad that we solidified to call ourselves the Grateful Brothers because right now I'm having debates in my mind if we should be the grateful pastors or the grateful jewelers. The grateful jewelers. I mean, it's one or the other. And I mean, and it comes effortlessly because I want those watching to understand the organicness of what you are bearing witness to right now. Because none of this stuff was pre-discussed. I purposely was vague in what we were going to talk about because I want things to flow. I've had a lot of practice in the broadcasting industry, and I know that things work better when you let go and just let God, especially when you're trying to help people. So along with that thought, there's another, brief topic I want to bring to you, gentlemen. It kind of speaks to a little bit of what we've been talking about, and that's the issue of brokenness. And when I first considered it, while you guys were speaking, the verse that came to my mind was 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 10, where Paul talks about a little something being in his flesh called a thorn. Now, I'll admit to you guys, when I first read that verse, I didn't know what he was talking about because he ends up saying that he talked and prayed to God about this thorn in his flesh. And God told him to shut up about it in, a manner of speaking. And the reason why he did that is because God knew he had a great work for Paul to do. And he knows that if we get a little bit too great, or accomplish a little bit too much, and don't have something within ourselves to buffer ourselves from the pride, which is resident in every human being, then we're going to stray away from him. So the verse accurately says, unless I be exalted above measure, the Most High allowed a buffet from the devil himself to remain with me. But then the ending is what is transformational when he talks about, so I would rather glory in my infirmity so that the power of Christ might rest upon me. And that, my brethren, and all those who are listening, is the power of brokenness within itself. We wouldn't be qualified to sit here before you if there weren't any struggles we went through, because everybody can identify with struggles and everybody aspires to success. But struggles are the pathway to success. Right now, you're seeing a collective journey. And we definitely hope that you will join us and continue to join us for this journey, because you're going to see nothing but transformation, not only with the brothers who are sitting before you right now, but hopefully within your very self. So if any gentleman wants to, contribute to the fact of how powerful brokenness can be, even in your own life or somebody else's life that you've seen, we are all ears, because everybody has an area in which they were broken. And just like John said, that's okay.
Yeah. I want to start with that because, first of all, man, that was a soliloquy. I want to copyright that and put it on a frame because the way you broke that down was really cool. I haven't read that scripture in a minute. So first and foremost, brokenness is so important. And again, when you're in the moment, it does not feel good. In 2020, I tore my Achilles and had to have surgery and went through a full year of recovery and physical therapy. It was a grueling process, but now my Achilles is stronger than it's ever been. I'm 40 plus, so I'm not out here trying to race my 13-year-old anymore, but it's stronger, right? And I wouldn't wish that injury or surgery on anybody, but I learned a lot from it. The next year, literally a year to the date, I fell and tore my rotator cuff in my right arm. Couldn't lift my arm past this high, right? Mm-hmm. Had to have surgery. It was a 6-month recovery. What am I getting at? I think that a lot of people are only focused on what they know. They're not interested in something being changed in their life, because change typically involves uncomfortability. But to put it in business perspective, people rebrand all the time. People come up with new slogans, new names, etc. But in order to do that, you have to get rid of the old thing. You have to break what's there, right? And I say all the time that a lot of people want to have a new brand made, but they don't always want to be made brand new. Ooh, right? Ooh. And when you think about that, that is the emphasis of being able to do that. That is just a part of what happens in that process. So my first thing when I sit down and talk to people, I don't care what they come to me for. I want to find out who you are. I want to find out what you got going on, because who you know yourself to be today is going to need to be broken and changed in order for you to reach the levels that you're trying to go to in the stratosphere.
The brokenness element of it is so pivotal, man. And to return to that, I can personally recall a conversation I had with the Most High very early in my walk with him, where I told him, I said, man, I ain't telling nobody about my flaws, fam. You crazy? You know who my family is? You know who I am? Me telling him this. Doing it in, I wouldn't say arrogancy, but primarily ignorance. But as I've grown, the wonderful thing about the relationship that we have with the Most High, whether we forget what we're talking about, whether we forget to take out the trash, whether we make a mistake, make a wrong turn, cut somebody out, or act out of a character, he's still right there like, come on, fam. You know that ain't you. Come on around back here. He welcomes us right back there with open arms. And that in turn teaches me that shoot, without that brokenness, man, how in the world would I be able to experience a new depth of love? Because we don't really know what love is. We say we do, and I know I've told women that I love them, and they've told me that they love me. My parents have told me that they love me, and I in turn have told them that I love them. But God says himself that he is love. And then the word also tells me that he is unsearchable. He's past finding out. He's too extensive. He's too wide, you can't get around him. Too low, you can't get under him. Too high, you can't get over him. And I'm like, if you are love and you are all that, then what really is love? So I'm grateful to be broken, to experience what love is. And for that, another source of infinite gratefulness, man. Seriously.
You know, I wanted to jump when you said brokenness, because I feel like Paul in the fact that, like, I can boast all the more in my brokenness, because when I am weak, he is strong. I struggled for the longest time with the same struggle that all men struggle with, which is lust and pride, right? And when you're going through the storm, when you're going through it, right, it does feel like a thorn in your side, because in your 20s, your teens, it feels like it's uncontrollable, right? Like you can't get ahead of it. You can't get over it. You can't even control yourself. Like, why do I do the things that I do when I know I shouldn't, right? Enough times bumping your head doing that, enough pain, right? You talk about the brokenness being the very thing that leads you to love, because how can I know what love is if I don't know what it isn't, right? I was confusing lust for love. I was confusing lust for admiration. Every way that I found to express myself was lustful in nature, whether it was sexual, whether it was greed, whether it was pride or something of the ego. When I fill this God-sized hole inside of me with anything other than God, all I do is create a bigger hole, which I need more of him to fill it with. And so I'm grateful for all the brokenness. I'm grateful for all the struggles I've ever had that I filled with the wrong thing, because it's just created this giant void that once I filled God, I couldn't stop getting enough of him, because I've created more. It went from an aching to like a insatiable, I need more of this, because this is the only thing that's making it feel better. And it's not just making me feel better, it's making me better so that I can serve better and at a higher level. Like when I was trying to get over my ego and the lust that came with it and the greed and the pride, that's all I focused on, right? We go back to, gratitude is a perspective shift. When I started thinking less about how to fix myself and more about how to serve others, more about what I could be doing instead of these things, more about furthering my knowledge and my further developing myself, whether in the word or reading these books here on the shelf. I started noticing I just didn't have a desire. I didn't have desire. I didn't have time. I felt more fulfilled with people and with reading and expanding my mind than I did with satisfying my flesh.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Greg, you saying that you're grateful for the bad things that were in your life because they led you to some greater things in your life.
Absolutely. Okay. That's exactly what I'm saying. All of the horrible, all of the pain, all of the mishaps, all of the things that in the moment didn't feel good at all have actually made me greater. And to the listener, right? Because I haven't addressed y'all yet. to the listener that doesn't feel like they're even worthy of expressing any kind of gratitude because they're struggling with pornography, or they're struggling with drugs and alcohol, or they're struggling with something that happened when they were younger that they feel such deep shame about, right? Find a group of people that you can let this out, that you trust, and maybe you'll find out that you're not alone, right? I remember the value of 12-step programs for me was in that sponsor, which I found out after leaving 12-step programs, that a sponsor is basically a mentor or a coach, right? It's another man with whom you can share that deepest, darkest thing with, that you're lugging around, hoping that no one finds out, which keeps you trapped in a cycle of guilt and shame, right? Guilt is good. Guilt says, I'm doing something that's not good. I probably shouldn't do that anymore. Where it gets dangerous and toxic is when it becomes shame, and it says, you're the problem. You're broken. You're the reason. Like, you're the thing that's wrong. You're not wrong, right? John said it. Just the fact that you made it here, listening to this podcast, just the fact that you're here, you won the war. You could have been a memory in a sock, right? I'm not going to go there, but I'm just saying, we all know.
PG.
It took me a second. It took me a second. It took me a second, man.
With PG, man.
Look, take it where you want. Take it where you want. But I'm just saying, you won the war. You won the war just by being here. You are enough, and who you are matters. And it doesn't matter what you did, because what you do is not who you are, right? What did Jesus have to do in order for God to say, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased? Did he have to turn water to wine?
No.
Did he have to feed 5,000 people with 2 fish?
No.
Right? No. Did he have to perform one miracle?
No.
Did he have to preach one sermon?
Mm-hmm.
All he had to do was be born.
Mm.
He told him that before he did all that stuff too. Woo.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
He told him, I am well pleased with you prior to doing any of that stuff.
Yeah. So
that was the baptism.
Yeah. This is my son in whom I am well pleased. Yeah.
That's right. Then he went into the wilderness, battled with the devil for 3 temptations and beat that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came out and ministered to the people.
Well, let's take a step back, though, because he didn't go into the wilderness. He was led by the Holy Spirit.
There you go.
Let's be clear. God is a master craftsman of ordaining our steps, and he leads us some of these places, right? Mm-hmm. A good friend of mine talked about Job, and he's like, when you read that passage, the devil going to God to ask about him, he was searching the earth for people he can devour and destroy. And God was like, well, have you considered?
Yeah.
Have you considered my servant Job? Like, I'm Job. I'm over here like, yo, God, like, why you got to call me out, man? He ain't even bothering me. He didn't put me on Front Street. So
he didn't even see me.
You know what I mean? But my point is, like, that's how God moves, because not only does he know us, meaning by the count of the hair on our heads, but he also knows the outcome of the thing that he's going to put us through. We just don't know. We don't know how we're going to make it through, or how the rent is going to get paid, or how we're going to get over tearing our Achilles, or whatever it might be. We don't know. In that moment, our human carnal minds crumbles with the idea of what might happen and what might not happen. And that's where anxiety and depression comes from. They say depression is thinking about past things that didn't work out, and anxiety is thinking about future outcomes that might not even exist.
That's right.
And so if you could just stay present, which is, it's a gift. That's why they call it a present. Then you might be able to be grateful for that opportunity to get to that place where God can use you in the same way that he used some of these people.
So good.
It's a wonderful thing, man. It's a wonderful thing when Most High is flying the plane or the car, boat, whatever you want to be transported on. And we have such a tendency to take the wheel. But there's so much relaxing and peace that can be done just by looking at the scenery while he takes the wheel and drive. Because even if you go through a dark area, David was talking about it. It's a valley called the shadow of death, but he gonna roll you right through that also. You may see some things and experience some things that are unfavorable, that are uncomfortable, as we've mentioned before, but that's not the final destination. Or else he would cease to be who he says he is, good, which is love. So he ain't gonna lead you there. And just like that, just like this journey has begun with this podcast and with this conversation, from the events that had transpired all the way back in May that have led up to right now, there's an immense amount of gratitude that each one of these gentlemen before you has, and we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of opening it up. But that's what this channel is for. That's what this community is for. And that's what this brotherhood is for. So what we want you to do is, if there are any questions, any concerns that you have, there's going to be area provided below this video. We're going to take this feedback, we're going to synthesize it, and then you will see how it comes out. You'll miraculously receive the answers that you need that are going to be inspired from the Most High, man.
Absolutely. I just wanted to add, in everything that everyone has said, there lies that one underlying thing, and it's what I mentioned earlier about trying to understand what you can't. I want to let that sit and marinate for a second. When we try to control things, we're saying that we can do it and not allow God to do it. And that's a big deal. It's not what we're here to do. In brokenness, you find void, and void can lead you to despair. However, everything in your life is meant to be fragmented, because that is where unity lies. If we four weren't here united, we wouldn't have what we have right now and what we're developing right now, right? Each person that comes on board is a person. It's an individual. To fragment, each four of us are fragments. We need that. But if we're only looking in with respect to the void of each fragmentation and not the fragment, then we're going to be lost, because you can't reach void. Do you follow? So even as we're created on a molecular level, we are pieces that are together, not the in-between. The in-between is the light, and the light is that from the Most High. So we have to be able to know that we can't understand everything, and that broken is beautiful, because the further out you look, the better that mosaic is going to stand out to you. That's why it's one of the most beautiful tiles there exists. The further you look away from a broken glass, the more beautiful it appears to you when that light shines through it. But if you're standing up close to that glass, you're not going to be able to see the full picture, because you're too focused on the crack. Step away for a second, really take a look at it, and you're going to find something much better to be grateful for.
Nice. So what I hear you saying is we're like Ninja Turtles or something. Collecting together.
All I'm saying is there's no pizza. However, how you make pizza, you still need the dough, you still need the sauce, the cheese, and the roni, or whatever you want on toppings. All right?
Okay.
And the space in between to fluff up that crust.
Okay. Come on now.
Now we're the grateful chefs, bro. I'm telling you.
Y'all talking about macaroni grill, pizza. Man, I gotta go eat. This is
real talk, man. I feel the plane has been landed. That joint is going to take off yet again, just like any other airline. But this is flight 777, baby. I appreciate every one of you gentlemen, man. I love every one of you gentlemen, and we are going to see how this thing develops and grows. So to all those who are watching, man, please stay tuned. Please stay grateful, and please stay interested, man. And blessings to everybody until we meet yet again.